Prognosis.
Right off the top today, breaking news out of Denton. The Denton Police Chief Frank Dixon about to speak, and the Mayor Chris Watts regarding a police-involved shooting overnight. Let's listen.
Midnight this morning. So before I start, I want to just lay out a couple of things for you. There's going to be a lot of the investigative-centric questions that we will not be answering because the investigation is being led by the Texas Rangers. So any inquiries that are going to be specific to the investigation itself or the release of information or evidence related to the investigation, the criminal investigation, we're going to direct you to go through the Texas Department of Public Safety, okay? And we will answer a couple of questions at the end, but we're going to keep them limited, and I'll tell you whether or not we're going to talk about certain subjects. And most importantly, I just want you guys to know that we appreciate the media and everything that you have done for us today and how you have come together with the rest of our community in our time of need. So at about 12:02 this morning, just after midnight, one of our officers conducted a traffic stop in the 1800 block of West University Avenue. The traffic stop was for defective equipment and for an expired registration. At some point in the interaction during the traffic stop, our second officer arrived on scene as a backup officer. Almost immediately when our second officer checked out on the radio saying he was with our first, he got back on the radio saying shots fired, and then a short time later saying officer down. So as you can imagine, things very rapidly happened. They developed very quickly. But what I will tell you is our officer that arrived as a backup officer that put out the information that our first officer had been struck by gunfire did an amazing job. We're talking about a one-year rookie that's been on the department, a young man, not to mention being young in this profession, and I will tell you that he exhibited all the qualities that we want out of our police officers. He was calm, he was professional, he spoke very clearly, he was putting out very pertinent information and calling for help. But most importantly, he immediately went to rendering aid to our fallen officer. And I think that's important to know, because as we have police officers across this country that are being targeted, and not targeted in a physical sense, but targeted in the American policing sense, like we're a broken institution, I will tell you that that is wrong. We are not broken. We can, come together, and this is a perfect example of how our entire community, including you, the media, came together with us to help us throughout this day. So after the initial broadcast was put out that our officer had been struck by gunfire and was down, a suspect description was put out to include a license plate, make and model of a vehicle, as well as some very basic descriptors of the driver and the passenger and their direction of travel. In a span of 16 minutes, that description went from being broadcast locally in Denton to being broadcast regionally via our emergency communications dispatch. In the span, almost immediately when that broadcast went out regionally, an officer in Carrollton happened to look over and saw our suspect vehicle. Now, as he attempted to make a traffic stop on that vehicle, it led them on a small pursuit. Members of the Carrollton Police Department and some members of the Farmers Branch Police Department were involved in that pursuit, which lasted for a short time, and then both the driver and passenger were taken into custody without further incident. What we did find out when they were taken into custody that both of them were suffering from minor superficial gunshot wounds to their arms. They were subsequently transported to a local hospital, treated, released, and then booked into the Denton County Jail. And I'll identify both of them for you now. Our driver was identified as Michelle Stacy, a white female, date of birth August 28th of 1975. And our male passenger was identified as Antwon Pinkston, Pinkston, and he is a black male born December 13th of 1985. Immediately after they were taken into custody, we had multiple crime scenes, as you can imagine, going on at this time. We are so blessed that we have a great cooperative working partnership with not just our local police departments like the University of North Texas and Texas Women's University, but also with Little Elm PD, with Corinth, and with really all of our partners in the Metroplex. They came to render assistance to us very quickly. We had offers from Little Elm PD to start taking calls in our jurisdiction, from Corinth to start taking calls, and then from all of them just asking us what we needed throughout the day. So I can't tell them thank you enough. After that broadcast was put out and aid was being rendered to our downed officer, members of the Denton Fire Department arrived on scene very quickly. Just over 3 minutes they were on scene. Our officer was assessed, loaded, and transported here for medical assistance. I can't thank the staff in the emergency department, in the ICU, and the trauma surgeons that performed surgery on our officer today at Med City for just the excellent care that they have provided him. And not just for him, but for every law enforcement officer that came here today, for our officer's immediate blood family, and for anyone that just wanted to come up and pass along their well wishes. So to Med City, we really want to say thank you on behalf of the members of the Denton Police Department. So as I spoke about earlier, both of those suspects, after they were detained, they were taken back to the Denton County Sheriff's Office, to their Criminal Investigations Division, where they were interviewed by the Texas Rangers. Antwon Pinkston was subsequently booked into the Denton County Jail for the charge of attempted capital murder of a peace officer, and he currently has a $5 million bond on him. The driver was booked into Denton County Jail for at this time a probation violation, but those charges could change at a later time. As you can understand, the investigation is still very early on going. There's still a lot of work to do, not just immediately at the crime scene, but there's a lot of follow-up investigation that needs to be done. I would ask that you continue to keep our officers in your thoughts and prayers, not just our two involved officers, but the officers of the Denton Police Department and all the surrounding agencies that came out to assist us today. So our officers that were involved, I will say that our officer that was struck and injured by gunfire, he is a 5-year veteran of the Denton Police Department, and he has been identified as Urban Rodriguez, Jr. Our officer that provided medical assistance and was also involved in the shooting, as in he was the officer that shot back at the suspects, he is a 1-year officer, and he is identified as Randy Cole. And as I started off with, Officer Cole exhibited tremendous courage, heroism, and just a calm, professional, steady hand to not just adequately render aid to Officer Rodriguez, but to calmly put out information, very vital information, that directly led to the apprehension of our suspects. I want to thank members of the Denton Fire Department. I want to thank our emergency telecommunicators, our dispatchers. They have an incredibly tough job. They get to hear trauma every day, but very rarely do they ever get recognized for the things that they do behind the radio. So it's very important to me that we recognize them. And I want to recognize all of the officers that were out there that participated in the life-saving efforts that gave Officer Rodriguez a fighting chance. He underwent a very long surgery this morning. He did suffer 2 gunshot wounds, one to his head and one to his femur. His femur is broken. I would say that after his surgery, the prognosis for his recovery, while he is still in critical condition, it is favorable. With that being said, we want to be very cautiously optimistic in what his path to recovery looks like. And we know him as being a very a tough officer, yet compassionate. He's a fighter, but he truly cares about our community. And when you talk about someone coming into this profession with the heart of a servant, Urban exemplifies that. So not just for you there and for the audience watching, but really important for the police officers watching and for chiefs of police that are watching, never forget why you took the oath, never forget the privilege you have of wearing this badge. Urban had conversations with his family, and he comes from a wonderful family, salt of the earth, a very faith-based family. And in some of his discussions with his father, Urban spoke about the trials and tribulations of being a police officer in America today. And instead of sitting under a tree waiting for calls to come out, Irvin Onions did his duty is to safeguard, protect, defend, and serve this community. So he told his father that I'm not going to be that. I'm going to go out and do my job every day. I'm not going to swerve from the path of righteousness. I'm going to look danger in the face, and I'm going to do it honorably. So we need to honor him. I'd ask that you please respect the family's privacy. As you can imagine, they're going through an extremely traumatic time right now that we'll have to deal with. So please, I will ask the members of the media to respect that. And with that, I'll open up to any questions that you have before I let the mayor and the city manager, if they want to come up.
Chief, are you saying that Pinkston is the person who fired at your officer? And can you please clarify as to how the shooting initiated? Did the officer open fire first, or who opened fire first?
So that's all going to be encapsulated in the criminal investigation that the Texas Rangers are conducting. So I won't speak to it because I haven't been briefed on any of that. One of the things that I committed to coming here to Denton a year ago was that any officer-involved shooting that we had, any in-custody death that we had, we were going to use the Texas Rangers, an outside agency, to do that investigation. I think we owe it to the community, we owe it to ourselves.
Chief, can you elaborate on exactly what you did?
Well, I can't elaborate on that right now. As the investigation continues to evolve, and as pieces of that evidence start being released, I think you'll very quickly understand what that entails. But I myself, like I just said, I haven't been privy to a lot of the evidence contained in the criminal investigation because of our using the Texas Rangers to do it.
Do you know at this point if the police have had any interaction with either of these suspects before?
So we do know we had some interaction with our driver in the past here locally. With our suspected shooter, we did not have a lot of history with him, but I will tell you that both of them had a very extensive criminal history overall.
Do you know if they found any drugs or anything else illegal in the suspect's car, or what the motive for this might have been?
Yeah, right now we have no idea what the motive might have been for this, and I do not have any information about what may have been seized out of the vehicle at this time because the Rangers were executing a search warrant on the car. So if no more questions for me, I'll offer up the Mayor Chris Watts and City Manager Todd Heilman if they would like to say a few words.
I'll keep it brief. I just ask the community to keep the family in their thoughts and prayers, and Officer Cole in your thoughts and prayers, and also the extended family of the men and women of the Denton Police Department. For they go out every day and they made a commitment to keep us safe. And they do it without regard to their personal safety, and I cannot say enough about what they do for our community and what all law enforcement officers do for their respective communities. I also just want to thank so much our first responders who responded, I believe it was in 3 minutes. They got there in 3 minutes to render aid and to transport. I just ask this community to surround this family with love, to give them privacy, and to surround our first responders with love, to just reassure them of your support and that you're here for them however they may need us. Thank you, Chief.
Listening in Denton right now, you just heard from Mayor Chris Watts, had a few words to say, kept it brief, and on camera there you see Frank Dixon. He is the police chief for the Denton County Police Department, and he did give us the identity of the 5-year veteran Denton police officer who was shot last night twice, once in the head, once in the femur, underwent long surgery today. The officer identified as Irvin Rodriguez Jr., but the good news is the chief said favorable when he talks about recovery based on what he's hearing from the healthcare professionals, and called this officer as a human being, a salt of the earth kind of guy.
That's right, and they also spoke very highly there, you heard him, of the second officer that arrived on that scene. We've learned he was a 1-year rookie, jumped in, immediately rendered aid to this officer that was shot. So a lot of people calling him a hero this afternoon. The Texas Rangers, they are investigating this. Of course, we're going to stay on top of it. We'll bring you updates, CBSDFW.com, and we're going to have more throughout our newscast. But in the meantime, we want to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.